on what has been a hello and welcome to the Sunday Club. We are back on what has been an action-packed weekend with the politics in Punjab really heating up. And as we're coming live to you, the new Chief Minister of Punjab has just been announced. It's a name that nobody expected. In fact, it's a name that wasn't even in discussion up his name, but Charanjit Channi is going to be the new chief minister of Punjab. It's just been announced as we speak. He's in the governor's house. This is a Dalit Sikh face from Punjab, the first Dalit Sikh chief minister of the state, and he's young. He's 48 years old. And what has also happened during the course of the day is a lot of the inner workings of that crucial meeting and conversations that have been going on between Chandigarh and Delhi. And some people suggest that in the morning it was Ambika Soni who then issued a public declined publicly, saying that she was not interested in being chief minister and a Sikh should be the chief minister of Punjab. Subsequently, Mr. Randhava's name came in the foreground. Mr. Randhava is a veteran politician. He was very close to Captain Amarinder Singh before becoming one of his critics. And his name was doing the rounds very actively, to the extent that people were even saying that he's taken an appointment to meet with the governor in the evening. However, then there was a message that was sent out via the media channels that everything was on hold. Inside sources say that Sidhu, who has increasingly become very powerful in the Congress and especially in Punjab Congress, now also the state party chief, basically walked out when Randhava's name was proposed, and that led to another set of factions. And subsequently, I guess Mr. Channi is the compromise candidate, so to speak. I don't think he was expecting it either, because when he came out of the meeting, he was flooded with questions and media persons, and he looked absolutely shocked. He had nothing to say. So I think it's been a very big surprise for him as well. I have a very knowledgeable panel with me today this Sunday. Some of you are asking where AIM is. AIM is taking a break. Sohail, as we know, had a bereavement last week and is traveling. But we're back with some of your favorites on the Sunday Club and some new faces as well. So please join me in welcoming to the Sunday Club Professor Dipankar Sengupta, who has been joining us regularly. Professor Dipankar, thank you for joining us. Ratan Sharda ji, who is also a Sunday Club regular but has been busy with his own YouTube channel now, making some excellent content which you must check out. Raghav, Awasthi, lawyer, good friend.
My YouTube on Sundays.
Okay. Raghav Awasthi, good friend, lawyer. Not sure if he's in India or Germany right now. He lives between two countries.
Where I'm in India right now. I've been in India for quite some time now. And I'm actually at a resort on the outskirts of Gurgaon. So it's a place called the Taj Damdama Lake. You've been there once. It's a really nice place.
Yeah, it's lovely. And we have a voice from Punjab is here as well. Joining us for the first time, Mr. Dewan from Ludhiana in Punjab, keen political observer. He was with us. He was having some internet connection issues, so I guess he'll be back soon. But let's just dive right into it. Ratan Sharda ji, you are also from Punjab. जो हम कहते हैं मूल्यता आप पंजाब से हैं. You've been obviously observing what's been going on. What's your take on? First, I'm very curious. How has Sidhu become so popular? Not popular, actually, that's the wrong word. But how has he become so powerful in the Congress in a mere 5 years? Ratan Sharda ji, you're on mute.
Congress is a private limited company run by a family. So one who becomes favorite of that family becomes supposedly a strong leader. I do not know how strong he is, but in the eyes of Nehru family, it seems that he's very strong, and he has a knack of speaking wonderfully, no doubt, populist leader. But as a minister, he didn't do much. As an MP, he didn't do an MP. As far as I know, he was okay, but as a minister, he was a failure. And his way of rubbing people the wrong way cannot make him a powerful politician in Punjab. Punjab is a very, very state where dissimulation works in a very, very adverse manner, it can hurt the state and hurt India. To just go back a little, Sidhu actually, see, problem is also, if I talk, the parallelly problem also has been in the BJP Akali alliance. What Akalis did, they never allowed a Sardar or Sikh to become a big face in Punjab. So Sidhu suffered because of that. So because BJP wanted to play along with Akalis for long years and never disturb the equilibrium, they played along. So Sidhu was a victim of that particular Akali idea of keeping Sikhs out of BJP star campaigning, materials. So Sidhu suffered. Now, say megalomaniac, or you could say with strong ego, not megalomaniac, but a strong ego. Naturally, he wanted bigger cake and he walked to Congress. So now he has got the right people in Nehru family, so he's become popular. My fear is that what Captain did in the last year during farmer agitation, that despite going against the farmer agitation, he asked people to go to Punjab. So Punjab farmers became the center of attention for the entire nation, and Punjab became equal to India. Now, issue is that whenever it happens in 1970s, Indira Gandhi didn't allow Akalis to settle down one chief minister, second chief minister. It resulted in Anandpur Sahib's resolution, which is basically a very strong tilt towards separatism. If you go through that Anandpur Sahib resolution, so whenever there is a problem, they pull out Anandpur Sahib resolution and start
Ratanji, there is a complaint. Your voice is too low. So could you speak a little louder, please?
Okay, what I said was that whenever now there is a problem, Akalis are bound to take out Anandpur Sahib resolution whenever they deem it fit. If you remember, when they left BJP, they called their Anandpur resolution. They started talking about it. So it's a permanent weapon in their hand. That is the fear. And when they they did this, then competition between Akalis and Congress resulted in 80s horrendous situation of 80s and 90s. I was there. I used to go there very regularly. I've seen the worst of it. But the worst part is, even at that time, Punjab had a certain life and energy and enthusiasm. If you go now, it is kind of, decaying state, hardly any youth who are there who want to leave Punjab. My question to all the politicians who talk big is, why no youth wants to remain in Punjab? That's a question everybody must answer. उड़ता पंजाब बन गया, सब बन गया, कप्तान साहब आ गए, उड़ता पंजाब गायब हो गया, ड्रग्स का प्रॉब्लम गायब हो गया, स्मगलिंग का प्रॉब्लम गायब हो गया. So this play of politics and this playing up of emotions is very dangerous. With farmer agitation, is how Khalistanis came back into scene and tried to hijack it. In fact, they are still hijacking it. So it has become a Panthik issue that farmer agitation is no more economic issue. If you go to Punjab, you meet people, it is being run from Gurdwaras. So situations are pretty bad. We can't say sitting here, what is it? I am not saying BJP may lose this election. It has a national issue if it loses in Punjab, and the Akalis have dished it and also didn't allow it to build up a leadership. It is a temporary phase. But for Punjab, this is a very, very sensitive time. This is time when we must be very careful about playing up religious sentiments, and that is being played. And this Channi or anybody, I really compliment that Congress has chosen a Dalit face for Punjab, because Dalit, the biggest community in Punjab, was never represented. Jats totally dominated the political scene in Punjab since the advent of son Fateh Singh. So this has to change. And if they are able to play well, I do not know whether they will be able to play up, whether Channi is capable of doing it. I have no idea at all. He's a greenhorn face for the level of leadership. But if it happens, it will be good for Punjab, because community is now totally, I would say, isolated from the mainstream politics. BFC will try to fade. And second issue is conversion. SGPC, Akali Dal, Congress, none pays attention, but conversions in Punjab are so huge. All the deprived classes, isolated classes are being converted, and that is going to be a huge challenge in coming times. So these are the issues that Punjab faces today. Change of leadership, change of face is not the issue.
Okay, I'm going to, Professor Sengupta, Captain Amarinder Singh yesterday in multiple interviews raised that the point that his biggest objection when it comes to Sidhu is the question of national security, and Sidhu's what he referred to Sidhu's Pakistan business. I'd like to ask you about the national security ramifications of the state of Punjab, and what political instability of this sort means in that context. And I'd also like to welcome Mr. Dewan, who's luckily for us, his internet is working again, and he's joining us from Punjab to give us a view from the state. And quickly also, please like, share, subscribe, press your notifications. I always forget to say it, so I'm just saying it now. And go ahead, Professor Sengupta.
Advaita, remember last time we were having this conversation, we said, look, Amarinder is playing this just right, and Congress is basically going from blunder to blunder. I think in these few days, I think things have changed. In a sense, the Congress has not allowed Amarinder to do anything precipitate. When the Captain Amarinder talked about security issues, I mean, he may have been sincere in talking about security issues, but it appeared in the interviews that his main grouse basically was Sidhu, that come what may, Sidhu should not take over. And after those comments were made, if you look at the Congress's comments, Harish Rawat's comments, they were, look, he's a senior leader, he has done a lot for the party, etc. So there's grace on part of the party, not the blundering that we had predicted there would be. And then, of course, what has happened now is something that Amarinder cannot complain about, because his main problem, his fear or thing about Sidhu replacing him, that is not coming to fruition. But if you look within the Congress party itself, I think every group in a sense has been checkmated, and the Congress high command in a sense has got whatever it wants. Look at these particular people. Everybody in a sense have burned their bridges. Amarinder, by giving this agitation, farmers agitation, so much limelight, in a sense has burnt his bridges. He conceivably cannot go to the BJP even if he wants to. Those who against him, Sukhjinder, whose name was taken in, he has also in a sense burnt his bridges. He basically went against Amarinder. So he cannot expect Amarinder's support now that he has also been disappointed. And the person who has been put up in proper Congress tradition is a greenhorn, is seen to be weak and therefore can be easily be manipulable. Now the question is, what does it do for national security? I think as Sharda ji pointed out, look, this is a sensitive state. And the farmers issue, I mean, in a sense, because, I am on social media in Jammu. I talk to a lot of Sikhs, both from Jammu and Punjab, on this particular issue. And the manner in which strange arguments are strung together to support the farmers' issues from persons who should know better otherwise seems to suggest there is something else at play. Now, the question is the following. How will this play out? Now, the question is, if improperly handled, there will be problems. Look, I believe at the end of the day, while it has been made into a Panthik issue, the number of people who are actually pushing this in absolute terms is pretty small. Let us face it, it is by and large the Arthyas who are pushing this. They are influential because while they are small, the amount of resources they can control and their ability as opinion and force multipliers is actually pretty large. So when it comes to the instability game, they can do a lot of nasty things. And once you mixed it with religion, it's a nightmare situation. But with the coming of Charanjit Singh Channi, a large section of Punjabi society, which hitherto was unrepresented at the highest levels of power, will now find representation. So what you do is basically broaden representation. So the tool, in a sense, has not just 3 pegs, it has 4 or 5 legs. It has a tendency to be more stable. And by and large, let us face this. The Punjab problem, as it cropped up, was primarily a Jat issue. Once other communities, and particularly the Dalit community, given its numerical preponderance, once it comes into play, then the ability of a particular set of people using their community to create a national issue or to destabilize is somewhat circumscribed. But as Sharda ji also said, there is this other issue about conversions going on. And something is wrong with this particular conversions. Look, had this been to one of the established churches, established denominations have a tendency to behave responsibly because they want stability. The denominations that are coming in out here are denominations I've never heard about. The name Pentecostals, etc. One knows what Pentecostals, etc. are. But these so many denominations coming in, one doesn't know where this money is coming in from. One doesn't know what their motivations are, because many of these characters also have a tendency to land up in any agitation that takes place. So any agitation that takes place, you will find one of these representatives also standing out there. So I think now what has happened is the following: it is game set match to the Congress right now. Okay. How it plays, I mean, 6 months is a long time in politics. How it plays out is another matter altogether. Right now, the Congress has exactly what it wants. Amarinder Singh has welcomed Channi. Channi is, it seems so far, in the hands of Navjot Singh Sidhu and the Congress High Command, and they think he will do exactly what he says, although that I think is unlikely. A person who has been a minister so far, has worked in the various tiers of government, will have a mind of his own, and after some time he may push back. Look, he's a greenhorn. We don't know much about him. Okay, except to say that he seems to be a grassroots person. It's likely that for the next 6 months, it will be more of a collective leadership. Channi does not have the authority or the personality to stamp his will on the administration. So the other people will also come in. Now, if this is a collective leadership which is coherent, it is good, one thing. If it is a collective leadership, if people are sniping at one another, and the presence of Navjot Singh Sidhu and the role that he's played in undermining some of the hopefuls is still fresh in their minds, anything can happen. Anything can happen. So I think we are heading towards very interesting times. And let me repeat, it is game, set and match to the Congress right now.
Okay, that's new. At this point of time, we haven't heard game, set and match Congress in a long while. But I really don't think Captain Amarinder Singh is sitting twiddling his thumbs. That's for sure. I mean, if anything, he's just buying time, and he said the right thing at the right time. And that's about all he's done. He's not done anything more than that. And there is a belief that Channi is going to be a caretaker CM till the election, and the Congress is going to go into the elections with Navjot Singh Sidhu as their CM face. That is what is being said at this point of time. But of course, we don't know. We're just going by the chatter, so to speak. Raghav, Amit Malviya from the BJP has just tweeted a little while ago about some Me Too allegation from about 3 years ago against the present chief minister. Now, this was him in interaction with an IS female official, and messages of a certain nature being exchanged. Raghav, legally, of course, there is nothing to this, if I'm not mistaken, because nothing was taken on at that level. But considering that this qualifies for a Me Too case because there was a power dynamic in place, what is your take on something like this having any impact on the decision? Do you think the Congress did a background check and checked the veracity of these claims, and then felt like it's okay to go ahead with him?
I think politically, I doubt very much that something like this would cut any ICT voters either which way. But as far as I'm concerned, it seems to be a bit of a non-issue at the moment as far as the elections are concerned. I'm actually quite interested in the social engineering, because there are some parallels that can be drawn between what the BJP is doing in Haryana and Western UP, where it has decided that although Jats are the plurality as far as the numbers are concerned, it has said that, okay, we are going to anoint somebody else from some other community as the chief minister, and then see how it plays out. And I think the Congress, I mean, I will not say that it's game, set and match as yet, but they seem to be playing it well, because they have realized that as far as the soft separatist vote is concerned, and let's face it, the Jatsi community in Punjab is about 40% of the 60%, which is, I mean, 60% are Sikhs, and out of that, 40% are Jats. So that's about 24%. And this is the community which is also, which controls the Gurdwaras, first of all. And secondly, they are the only community where there is still some semblance of separatist sentiment that is left, because they used to feel that if at all there are some elements within the community which used to feel that if at all there is Khalistan, or even if there is a greater devolution of powers to the state government, they would be the biggest beneficiaries. So I think the Congress is playing very smartly in as much as that is anointed a Dalit as CM, and now the idea is to politically isolate the Jat community almost altogether. I think to that extent, it's very, very smart strategizing. I also think that this time the election would be quite it would throw up a fragmented verdict. Even if somebody wins an outright majority, the vote share margins are going to be such that it is going to be an absolute nightmare for any psephologist, because you have the Aam Aadmi Party in the fray, which is very strong. There is a element of the Panthik vote which will remain with the Akalis. They're not going to get, they're not going to roll over and die. There are people who are maybe in their 50s and 60s and 70s who would still be voting for the Akalis. So I think so the Akalis and the Aam Aadmi Party and were vying for the same vote. So the Congress has said that, look, we are going to carve out a different constituency. And of course, people keep forgetting that there is a very significant Hindu vote in Punjab as well, which is about 40%. It is concentrated in the major centers of population. So there is a possibility that this Khalistan bogie, which was raised earlier, and Khalistan and Pakistan bogie, which was raised by Mr. Amarinder Singh, although I think it's a bit hypocritical on his part to raise it, given the fact that his current partner is somebody from Pakistan, and is also his current partner, I think, is also related to Yahya Khan. So I don't think there are a lot of people who know this. His current partner, I think, is Yahya Khan's niece or a grandniece or something like that. I'm not 100% sure, but she is related to him.
Other is who was called General Rani or something. I think that's the who was connected with Yahya Khan.
Yeah. So what I wanted to just say complete. Let me just complete what I'm saying. So in these circumstances, I think it sounds like really deft social engineering what the Congress party has done. Having said that, as Mr. Sengupta pointed out earlier, Mr. Channi would have a really difficult task when it comes to running the administration, because what has happened is there is a Yes Prime Minister episode called Party Games. That's the Christmas special where James Hacker becomes the Prime Minister, because there are two others who really want the job, and then nobody really expects James Hacker to become the Prime Minister, and then he ends up becoming the Prime Minister from being he was also not much of a performer in the cabinet, but yeah, he ends up as the Prime Minister. So there are some themes from the show that are evergreen, and you can see them even today.
I know, that's why.
But yeah, like I said, I can't count out the Aam Aadmi Party as yet. But if at all the Aam Aadmi Party were to come to power, it would be an absolute disaster. Punjab is a very crucial border state, and these people have gone. They've not even pretended as if they are trying to distance themselves from the Khalistani elements. There are people who are Bhindra wales, very close age, who have shared a stage with the likes of Yogendra Yadav. And I will say it. And even for that matter, this whole farmers' protest has been hijacked by Khalistanis. You spend 10 minutes with those people on any of the borders, and you will get to know that. So it's a very dangerous situation. And if the Aam Aadmi Party were to come to power, then it will be absolutely disastrous. Even as we speak, the Pakistanis are trying very hard to push drugs and arms across the border. They are trying to smuggle all of these things. They're trying to destabilize. And if the Aam Aadmi Party were to come to power, I will not be surprised if the state has to be put under president's rule. And therefore, it is imperative that they are defeated.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly go to Pramod. Is very bad, so I'm going to go quickly to him so he gets a word in. Pramod, how are you? How are you viewing the developments in Punjab right now?
So far we are discussing politics only. But you see, in my opinion, Punjab is in a very bad shape, and we have to retrieve it. Now, people of Congress culture or Akali culture can't do it. You see, just don't forget that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. He has a really bad connection. Get him on.
You can take without video, probably take him without video.
Probably,
I
yes.
think
Next time.
without video, it might work better.
Yeah,
No,
Chitraj, please
yes,
request
that
you
is
to
video.
come on without the video. Ratan Chandra ji, I want to ask you, like 35% is of course the Dalit vote. And there is a good sizable number of Hindus also in Punjab, and a lot of people do bring this up. Why has the BJP not been able to, have any kind of an imprint in the state? Like, they seem like a non-factor after the split from the Akalis. The BJP is a non-factor in Punjab. And do you
See,
think the captain has not rebuffed any suggestions that he may collaborate with the BJP in some way? Do you think there's a possibility that you're going to see a different kind of coalition come up in the next couple of months, or has the farmers' protest, so-called farmers' protest, being widely supported by the farmers in Punjab, restrict that idea?
There are 2 points about. One is about conversion. Conversion in Punjab is a big private business. Remember how harassed because of exposing the conversion racket in Punjab. In 1980s, one of my very close relatives had decided to leave Amritsar because of terrorism. He could not tell his huge property. Finally, it was bought by a church person. And the church person had a typical Hindu name. He was typical private practitioner of conversion. And that is what is happening in Punjab today and all over India. In fact, if you see, this is one of the biggest big money business. Secondly, about AAP. In last election, many people may not be aware that AAP had very strong, when people came to know that AAP has strong support from the Khalistani elements. Overnight in the election, Akalis decided to drop their antipathy for other things. They persuaded people to vote for Congress and not vote for AAP candidate. This happened overnight. If you talk to Akali candidates of those times, they were so disappointed and so shocked for losing the election, which seemed to be there. So there is a sense of big caution about Khalistani elements coming up. But this religious issue, this farmer issue that has been converted to a religious issue is a problem. Now coming to the Amarinder and BJP equation. See, BJP had a very strong presence in urban areas. It had a very strong imprint in the cities where Hindus or what we call monas are concentrated. But as I said, the Akali Dal's very smart game of not allowing any leadership to rise in BJP. If you ask anybody in Punjab when the cabinets were made, BJP would have given some of the most tough cabinet, posts which had unpopular decision to be made. They were not implemented. So BJP ministers used to cool their heels, and they used to be treated very shabbily by Badal and family. This kind of on personal accounts of people. So this is the reason why people got a bit disenchanted with the BJP. Now, because of farmer agitation, when there is huge polarization, that is the reason BJP is suffering. BJP is taking a very strong base. As far as this post, if you remember last elections, BJP had better voting success than Akali Dal. And that is what threatened Akali Dal in a huge way. I'm talking the last Lok Sabha election and also assembly elections. It is only this time because of farmer agitation and huge polarization at village level that BJP may be seen as a non-runner for the time being. But if Amarinder decides to have an alliance, I have very much doubt he will join BJP. He will not do it. He has a strong ego. He has the typical Maharaja attitude. He will damage Congress more, and he may have an alliance with BJP if at all he decides to move out of Congress and have his own party. That is the best possible scenario for BJP. That is the best possible scenario for opposition as of now. Because Akalis are also very unpopular. They cannot hold meetings in Punjab. They are beaten back. They are thrown out of the meetings. They are not allowed because they believe what has the anger against BJP. What Akali Dal wanted anger of farmer bill to be shifted to BJP. So they are safe. Because this polarization, this typical religious, much before what you saw it on the border. I know of this because my people from there told me how bad the situation is, how it has been totally brainwashed, the entire issue. Farmers will, nobody wants to speak from a point or another point. Just simply the flat.
Can I speak now?
Flat brainwashing done very well by the people.
Pramod has just joined.
Everywhere.
Yes, Pramod, please go ahead. Please. Yes, go ahead, Pramod ji.
Yeah, listen, it is not Congress or collective leadership or Akalis who will do any good to the state. This state is already gone so down, so down. Please don't forget that Sikhs and Punjabis had a culture of naming their children as Jarnail Singh, Karnail Singh, Subedar Singh, Kaptan Singh, Sipahi Singh, or Amrish Singh, Afriq Singh. They just had to.
I'm afraid we're just not able to connect with him properly. Uh, Dipankar, I'm curious to know from you. Uh, it's the Congress actually, because of really by default, the Akalis being so unpopular, that a flip doesn't seem to be in the offing. Do you think it's a self goal by getting rid of Captain Amarinder Singh, because now you've given birth to even more visible factions? So today, Randhawa, when he didn't become CM, post the announcement of Chani, came out and said that I've been the most powerful minister in the cabinet, and I will continue in the future also be the most powerful minister in the cabinet. So there's that faction. Then you have Sidhu, who it said was walked out of the meeting when Randhawa's name was proposed. So this is a divided house, and it's just become even more divided. One almost feels that till Captain Amarinder Singh was there, whether he was popular or not, he still had a sense of authority and control, being a chief minister more than once, and having been in politics for over 5 decades. Now you're going to have the Sidhu camp, and Sidhu is a new entrant. You're going to have the Randhawa camp. You're going to have Chani now, who's got the next couple of months to develop his own camp. And God knows who else, who are not visible as yet. So isn't this
Look,
thing for AAP?
look, where will these people go? The captain has burnt his boats. The manner in which he foolishly played up the farmers' agitation, for a long time on a lot of issues, he has shown his autonomy vis-a-vis the Congress High Command. And this is one issue where he could have shown his autonomy. You see, but timing is extremely important. You have to nip certain things in the bud. So when you basically play along with the farmers' agitation, etc., and make it fashionable for a lot of people to oppose it, even when they know what the facts are, to the extent that arguing for the farm bills becomes almost treasonous, then you create an atmosphere where social sanction is accorded to violence being inflicted on those people who are actually arguing for these farm bills. I'll give an example of it. On social media, I'm active. I have a lot of, used to have a lot of Sikh friends from Punjab, etc. Many of them have unfriended me because I said, this Rudali attitude that, keep on crying all the time, even when the facts are presented to you, is odd. And people have worked themselves into such an emotional state that they basically block you and you become anti-Sikh, you become a lot of things. Now, this is something that has been basically played up for a long period of time, and it's basically come to certain proportions. Now, to a great extent, I believe, had the captain made his feelings known on this pretty early, because you see, before the BJP came in the farm bills, every political party had supported farm reforms. Having supported farm reforms, and then you see somebody actually implements it, what do? You basically go against it. This foolishness has led to a genie coming out of the bottle, which you now find it difficult to control. So,
which is very dangerous. Yet again,
which is very dangerous. Now look, so
reason.
Amarinder, in a sense, as this point in time, has put himself in a position where going to the BJP, either directly or in some coalition, although 6 months is a long time, becomes slightly difficult. Look at the others. Where will Sukhjinder go to? He can't go anywhere. He may be disappointed, but where will he go to? So the fact remains, many of these characters may be angry, but they can't go anywhere. Which brings me to a point that Raghav raised. I'll basically disagree with it slightly. You see, what the Congress has done is not social engineering in the sense that the BJP did it deliberately in Haryana in a planned manner or in UP. This has happened because the chief minister aspirants, the Bahubalis, who happened to be Jats, were fighting one another, and since they could not agree on who would be the chief minister, you had Channi basically coming in. So Jim Hacker has come in because the big guns couldn't agree. That is
And he
social
looked,
engineering, but
he
it is,
looked positively shocked. He looked
yes, it
positively
is.
shocked.
Jim Hacker was also positively shocked when he
No,
became
why
prime
not
minister.
call
You see,
why not
so
call Inder Gujral?
yeah, yeah. So,
Fun has come
so
again.
oh God, let me finish. So,
Yes.
social engineering, in a sense, has taken place, but it was
Hmm.
not intended social engineering. Okay.
Hmm.
Now the fact remains: what does Amrinder do? I think he is biding his time. Everybody is biding in time to say how things basically play out. Now,
Right.
it is true that at this point in time, aligning with the BJP becomes a problematic thing. But it is also because, you see, everything cannot be attributed to the BJP high leadership. The BJP local leadership also has to spend a lot of time and effort into expanding their base. It is true that the Akalis have a problem with this. Okay, when the Akalis are out of power, that is the time you spend time and energy in basically broad basing yourselves. Fight the elections, fight them in their turf, see what happens.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, in many states, BJP became extremely comfortable in becoming the junior partner. This was successfully reversed in two states: Maharashtra, where from the
Right.
junior partner of the Shiv Sena they became the senior partner. They struck out with effort and a lot of political capital expended on part of Narendra Modi, and Haryana.
Hmm.
See, this is something that the local leadership has to do. You are the ones who have to expand that particular base. Of course,
Right.
your senior alliance partner would not want you to expand, but this is something that you have to do. How you do it, tactically, strategically, what is the timing is extremely important. Unfortunately, at this point in time, such is the poisonous atmosphere. My friends in the BJP in Punjab tell me that campaigning in the rural areas, they may be listeners or takers what they have to say. But given the threat of violence, which is very real, you know, it becomes difficult right now to do much. But and because they did not strike out when it was possible, their ability to do something in the urban areas also at this point in time is real. But the thing
Hmm.
is, the BJP local leadership has to try. You expect every time somebody has to pull it out for you, as happened in Bengal. Narendra Modi has to come and do it, not on. Local issues are fought locally, and for that, local leadership has basically to take the call. Sometimes local leadership is hobbled by central leadership interference. But this is how the game of politics is played. You have to keep on expanding your base, without which you either keep on contracting or it's an unhappy relationship.
No, it is absolutely, and the thing is, there are news items every other day where BJP leaders are being beaten up and thrashed in Punjab, and it's very hard for them to go out publicly, and this is it's
And this
just
is targeted, by the way. This is not spontaneous, this is targeted.
mm,
Any attempt at BJP to expand its area of influence must be confronted with these particular means. And see, the dangerous thing is the following: in the media and other parties don't condemn this because it's the BJP which is at the receiving end. And this is how militancy, a particular strain of thinking, makes itself powerful. It takes advantage of the divisions between mainstream political parties on certain core issues where there should be no disagreement at all. And they do it isolating one, eliminating one, and then targeting the other. If the Congress and other parties think that they will not be the future of these kinds of violent attacks, I think they're living in a fool's paradise.
yeah, because if you feed violence, violence is going to come for you eventually, and unfortunately that seems to be happening in every state. And for me, it's always been very alarming that the BJP, so-called fascist party by the leftists, is the one party which is whose members are attacked, be it Punjab, be it in Bengal, be it of course in Kerala, and multiple states like that. Raghav, coming back to this situation when it comes to being a border state, Captain Amarinder Singh may not have been popular with his MLAs. It's quite likely. I mean, I don't see in a party like Congress, if your high command is not backing you, I don't see how you could be popular with the MLAs at all. But what are the chances, what are the odds of Sidhu now emerging as the CM face for the upcoming elections, which is what a lot of observers are saying? Do you think that's going to be acceptable to, he's only been in the party since 2017?
I think I doubt very much that Sidhu will be anointed as the chief ministerial face. Having said that, I just want to add a few points to what was said about the Congress party's high command culture. As far as the Congress party is concerned, it is their problem. They know for a fact that if any regional satrap becomes too powerful, then the first thing that he or she does is to undermine the central leadership, because the problem with the central leadership is that now they have no base of their own. It's a bit like Robb Stark trying to Robb Stark from Game of Thrones saying that I will now win a kingdom in the Riverlands, and then all the Northern Lords decide to desert him. So the Congress party is in such a situation now. So I am not surprised that the Congress party wanted to clip Amarinder's wings, because see, this is how they survive. Ultimately, if you're in politics, you have to survive. So in order to survive, they have to clip the wings of whichever regional satrap is growing powerful. And I doubt very much that they will be able to anoint Navjot Singh Sidhu as the CM candidate, because my sense is that if the Congress party anoints a Jat Sikh as its CM candidate, it won't make a lot of sense, because the Jat Sikh vote is already divided between the Aam Aadmi Party and and the Akali. So I don't think the Congress party would be interested in competing for the Jat Sikh votes. I might be proven wrong, but arithmetically, it makes absolutely no sense for the Congress party to say that Navjot Sidhu will be a CM candidate. Otherwise, they could have brought in another Jat Sikh. Now, nobody stopped. The Jat Sikhs have dominated the politics of Punjab since the state was carved out. And the state was carved out in order to allay the concerns and meet the demands of the Jat Sikh community. And it was taken as a given that they would dominate the politics of this state. So that is one thing. And yes, secondly, Punjab is a very crucial border state from the point of view of India's overall security. And therefore, I feel that what the BJP did in the 90s is to accept a subservient position in the polity of the state. At one point, I think Ratan Sharda ji would agree with me when I say this. They even had a very strong constituency, not a strong constituency, more of a nascent constituency among Sikhs, and there is a very substantial number. In fact, the majority of the Sikhs are anti-Khalistan. So they had a very nascent constituency developing amongst the Sikhs. But what happened was more of a social alliance that was that the BJP entered into with the Akalis. And the idea was that, look, we are not going to poach the Akalis said that we are not going to poach the Hindu vote, and they never kept their part of the bargain. And the BJP said that we will not try and make any inroads amongst the Sikhs. So this is how it worked. But what happened during the farmers' agitation, of course, we know that it was hijacked by the Khalistanis, and then the Akalis, for the Akalis, the BJP became a political untouchable. So the Akalis never held up their part of the bargain. The BJP was filled with nationalist sentiment, and then it held up its part of the bargain despite the fact that the other party didn't do that. So this is where I think the BJP has really missed a trick. And in a state like Punjab, it should have been assiduously and aggressively expanding its constituency. So now the situation is such that this whole Sikh vote has been ceded to parties like the Aam Aadmi Party, which is basically, which, as I said earlier, they have not been coy about their flirtation with Khalistan supporters. So that is a big problem. As far as the violence on BJP supporters and BJP workers is concerned, I would like to add one more point. It is not violence against the BJP. Let's be very clear about it. The violence is targeted against the Hindu community. It's not violence against the BJP. It's violence against the Hindu community, and especially the urban Hindu community, which is not as organized as the landed Sikh community in Punjab. So it's more about showing Hindus their place. It's not about the BJP at all. Let's be very clear about it. The BJP is not as important as the idea of showing these upstart Hindus their place. So I think this is something that the intelligence agencies need to take a very strong note of, because this seems to be inspired from across the border. These seems to be very clearly inspired from across the border, because there was no, for the most part, like the relationship between Sikhs and Hindus before the 1980s, before the Anandpur Sahib resolution. I mean, the relationship has been good. Maybe it had frayed a little bit during the Punjab Suba agitation in the 1960s. And that was also because of the Congress party, which said that all the Hindus in Punjab should say that their mother tongue is not Punjabi, it's Hindi. So we have to be very clear about what the violence is about, who is being targeted, and only then would we be able to figure out as to how we can stop that. That's what I would like to say.
Advaita, I would
Thanks
like
for
to
that.
counter.
Then Sharda ji, one question,
Just,
Ratan Sharda ji. What is BJP state leaders were doing to grow their party when they were in power in Punjab? RSS also has a good base there.
yeah, I will respond to that. First, let me counter Raghav with all humility, because I said during my opening remarks, Akali leaders have also been beaten up. Even Badal has not been able to take his programs. It is now, this is, as I said, prestige issue. Gurdwaras are being used, SGPC is being used, but despite SGPC exploiting the situation by using Gurdwaras to promote this farmer issue the way they want to, but there is nobody spared. Whether Akali Dal or any leader who feels is not giving them support is targeted. So let us please avoid this Hindu-Sikh issue right now. The issue in Punjab is right now polarization in the name of farmers. It is not in the name of religion as yet. Yes, Panthic unity is being used, but that is not yet against the Hindus. But nobody, including Sikhs, has the courage to speak for farmers' bill, because that is a scenario there. That is point one. Point two, as I said, BJP had to suffer because it went along, kidded along with the Kalidars because they wanted to humor them. It was one of the oldest alliances, and that is the reason it suffered. As far as electoral field is concerned, farmer bill is the unsolved puzzle. That is why every party is puzzled. Nobody knows whom the votes will go. Aap may try to hijack the votes based on that, because it doesn't stand for anything. When a party is not standing for anything, people are tired of the glitches, they might go for it. But as I said, in last election, they did not go for it because of the Khalistan element which is supporting it. Right to put your bet on anybody, any party right now is very difficult. And BJP, knowing the risk, had taken the risk. If you remember, CA NRC, BJP took the risk in Assam, huge risk, but it was a national issue. Similarly, farmers was a huge issue. So even for that, it has taken the risk. For temporary setback of BJP is a temporary setback. And for whatever you might say, Punjab leadership was being handled by the central leadership, and that is the reason they were asked to keep control. They were asked not to speak up. I can say this now with authority, and I hope now they are allowed to be aggressive. They are allowed to be firm, and that will change the scenario. And BJP has not come from the back of what Mr. Dipankar Sengupta rightly said, Professor Saab. But BJP has done the same in Gujarat long back. It was secondary, third party, tertiary party. It did in Karnataka. Yes. It was tertiary party. So it has a habit of jumping the queue and coming on the top. Bihar also is nearly on the top. If you see what is the struggle in Bihar, JDU doesn't want BJP to rise further. So in Punjab, it will come up. But for the time being, it's in a very tight corner. And for the time being, everything is very unpredictable. Unless the farmer bill takes a certain, whichever shape it takes, it is very difficult and is very right now. It's very, very sensitive issue in Punjab. All the opportunities will take every kind of chance. That is why Amarinder is very important. Amarinder was the stabilizing factor. He had the sense of authority. He had that sense of clarity. Even while he supported farmers, he never went against Indian interests. So that is what is missing today in Punjab. That is very risky. This Channi guy may be very new. He may not be able to really put forward the issues that are of serious kind of concern to Punjab. That is my worry. And as I said, 80s, 90s lessons have not been learned. The way these people are reacting, the way these people are committing trouble, both Congress and the Akali Dal, this is bound to affect Punjab, and that is what our worries.
Raghav, you wanted to come in, and then Professor.
Yeah, I just wanted to counter Ratan Sharda ji, whom I otherwise respect quite a lot. And he, I mean, of course, being a Punjabi, he has this whole rose-tinted manner in which he looks at Punjab. I am not a Punjabi. I have no such illusions. And I have absolutely no such illusions. And I can also say that I have been amongst the protesting farmers. My spouse is a German journalist. And with her, I have been able to, I mean, I was acting as an interpreter. I was able to talk to quite a few people. So what we need to realize is that the sentiment there is not about the farm laws. I mean, ultimately, what do the farm laws say? The farm laws say that, look, you can, if you want to sell outside the mandi, you can also sell outside the mandi. That's all the farm laws say, right? But this agitation from day one was a Khalistani agitation. And there is a long history in Punjab of Khalistani elements attacking not just the RSS and the BJP. The RSS and BJP are attacked because they stand for the Hindus. It's as simple as that. They stand for the Hindu community. That is why they were targeted. And even recently, I think as late as 2015 or 16, there were some senior RSS leaders, Dr. Ratan, Sharda would actually know much more about this than I do. They were assassinated. And there is a reason why these people are being targeted, because the idea is that if you want to have this Sikh dominance in Punjab, right, and the Sikhs share of population has actually declined since the state of Punjab was formed, I think in 1964 or 5, 66, I think, after a long agitation. It was, I think, after the 65 war with Pakistan. So the Sikh share of the population has declined. So all of these attacks are being carried out to show Hindus their place. I mean, we should have no illusions about it. We live in a very, our part of the world is actually really violent and there are ethnic conflicts and whatnot. But the fact is this, the RSS and the BJP are the only organizations that work to organize Hindus at a political level. So when you are targeting them, you are warning Hindus against political organizations. This is what is happening in Punjab. And I think it is being done with connivance of intelligence agencies across the border. And it has to be nipped in the bud as soon as possible, because if it is not nipped in the bud, it will have consequences for the rest of the country. Because in the rest of the country, of course, the numerical proportions are reversed. So it would be really unfortunate there are Hindu-Sikh tensions, because Hindus and Sikhs have intermarried and interdined for hundreds of since the inception of the Sikh religion. But of course, like in Punjab, there is also a history of Singh Sabhas, and the Singh Sabhas were the ones who decided to say that, look, Sikhs are a separate religion. Now, let's not go into that history at the moment. But yes, we have a very, very serious situation at hand, and we really need to do something about it. And political parties like the Aam Aadmi Party, or for that matter, even the Congress, if we examine what Mr. Amarinder Singh has been saying lately, we would realize that he's trying to distance himself from this agitation, and he's repeated from this so-called farmers agitation, and he's repeatedly said that has been hijacked by Khalistani elements. So we need to examine what we are doing here, and we really need to course correct urgently. And if we look at the whole problem with rose-tinted glasses, then it would be a problem. And I think one of the key conditions between when this alliance was thrashed out between the Akalis and the BJP would be that the BJP would cede ground to the Akalis, and by implication desist from creating any kind of political unity and organization within the Hindu community. And as I said, the BJP kept its part of the bargain, because of course DNA has nationalism in it, but the other party has not done the same.
Okay, thanks, Raghav. I think what you're trying to say, and I think that is an important point, that you have to recognize the contour.
I don't want to leave without making a point. People, they are run away. See, I have written a book which is about to be published, where I have talked about Punjab, Jammu Kashmir, and Northeast insurgency and RSS role. So this fight is not about Hindus. It is about those organizations who want to prove that Hindu Sikhs cannot be divided. That is the issue. So this Khalistani attack on RSS BJP is primarily to see to it that nobody challenges that Sikhism is a separate religion, nothing to be, these are more close to Islam and all that stuff. I have done not 2 but 3 programs in my own YouTube channel about Sikhi, about Punjab issues. So let us not trivialize the issue, let us not simplify the issue. Issues are much deeper, and as I said, the fear factor is that Hindu Sikh should not come together. That is why RSS becomes a target. I would believe, thank you so much. Dipankar ji will take forward. Thank you, Dipankar.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yes.
Achha, to support what Ratan Sharda did, one point. There is no doubt that there is an element which will basically target Hindus. But on the farmers' agitation thing and how it's built up, if a Sikh from whichever party were to come and say, look, I support the farm laws, would he be welcomed? I fear not. He would also be attacked. And if he was to be organized and say it with louder force, he would be attacked even more. So, to that extent, without discounting what Raghav said, the fact remains that this agitation has been built up in such a way that anybody who basically tries to talk about the farm laws in a positive manner in Punjab will be attacked physically, violently, and there is social sanction for this. Now, Ratan Sharja ji talked about CAB, how the BJP took it in Assam and it prospered. Here, local leadership is important. This was basically Hemanto Biswas. He basically put it to the people of Assam that unless we support this particular act, then what Muhammad Sadullah basically dreamed in the 30s and 40s when he became Premier of Assam, Muslim League, his dream will come true. What do you want? When he put it in such a stark manner, in an organized manner, I think people in Assam, both Assamese and Bengalis responded, and for the first time, you see Assamese and Bengalis voting together to bring the BJP and the NDA back to power. So, if this nationalist line has basically found an echo in Assam, it has found echo because there was an organization to back it and there was a strong regional leader to enunciate it. And that's extremely important. Now, Ratan Sharja ji also talked about, Gujarat, the BJP coming from a tertiary party to the primary party in Gujarat. Remember, in Gujarat, in a sense, it was not a junior partner of anybody. For a brief period of time with the Janata Party, but by and large, it was an independent operator in Punjab. It was an independent operator in Karnataka. It was not in any alliance. And when it was, again, it was ceding more ground to a junior partner than receiving from it. It is only when the BJP struck out alone, when it strikes out alone, you see, it is able to increase its mass base, it is able to put forward its program and reach out to communities which hitherto apparently are unreceptive. This is a myth. I think Haryana has proved this, Maharashtra has proved this. These things are a myth. To reach out, you have to do hard work. Being in coalition, piggyback on somebody else to basically come to power, be a government in waiting for the party in power to make mistakes. That's a comfortable life, and that was the life of the BJP before 2014, by the way. Post 2014, with Modi coming in, this is a team that says, it's all or nothing. And let us face it, if a party has to expand, that is the way it has to go about it.
Professor, I'm just going to get Mr. Dewan in. He's joined us again.
Yes.
Hopefully it should work this time. This is the last time we're going to try this. Mr. Dewan, can you unmute yourself? Then we'll be able to hear you. By the way, meanwhile, Professor, Mr. Lee has said your ceilings need attention.
Yes, it does. But under COVID times, I cannot bring anybody and everybody to work in my house. Let it all survive. Not my ceilings. A lot of things will require attention.
Somehow he's not able to unmute
It
himself.
seems to be a very small room, Dipankar sir. Your room seems to be very small. I don't know whether it's your kitchen, sitting room, or bathroom.
No. It's basically part of a larger hall, but the larger hall is in far and poorer shape. So I don't want to show you.
Pramod ji, can you hear us?
Hello.
Pramod ji.
Can I speak for one moment?
Oh, sure.
Yes, please.
Again, mute. He's muted himself again.
Pramod ji, please unmute yourself. Why is he muted himself? Haji. Pramod ji,
I think he's unmuted himself. He's managed to unmute himself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Give me one moment. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Aho.
Yes.
Can you?
Professor, there's someone very worried about you. The same gentleman, he's saying Do you realize that Napoleon died of fungus mold in his prison? Professor Sengupta's life is in danger.
My life is in danger for a lot of things, not just fungus.
Pramodji, can you speak? We can hear you.
But can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Pramodji. Please don't mute yourself. We can hear you.
Oh God.
All right. I think, Pramodji, can you unmute yourself? We are also out of time now. So, Haji, please. Pramodji, please unmute yourself. I think
It's not going to work with Pramodji today, I think.
I don't think it's going to either. I think we'll have to have him back on another day. Okay, Pramodji. Okay, he's left. All right, Raghav. Any last comments? We shouldn't really necessarily write off the new chief minister. He's 48 years old. I mean, young man in.
No, I don't think we should write off the new chief minister. There were many, even Narasimha Rao was something of a James hacker, and I think he ended up being a very good chief minister. Having said that, I think these 6 months are not enough for anybody to make an impact. Everybody knows that the state is election bound, and every party is also in campaign mode. But as I said earlier, from the point of view of the Indian state or India as a whole, and also from the point of view of the population of Punjab, and the majority of them are staunch nationalists and patriots. And it's a very serious situation which is definitely being exploited. And I am pretty sure that the ISI from across the border is keeping a very close tab on the situation. They are keeping a very close tab on the situation, and I would not be surprised if they have sleeper cells in Punjab. There is no doubt about that. The sleeper cells might not be as active as they are in the Kashmir Valley, but in Punjab they are active, and we need to be really vigilant, because if there are parties that are not established, there are upstart parties that come to power, it's going to be a national security threat. They are going to flirt with Khalistani separatist elements as other parties did in the 1980s, and it can be a potentially explosive situation. Because we have to also realize one thing: now the economic situation in Punjab is also precarious. Then Punjab had a very strong economy. Even then it had a declining industrial base. Now agriculture has stagnated. The industrial base is not expanding. As far as the service sector is concerned, Punjab has not been able to keep up with the other prosperous states. And in terms of per capita income and agricultural growth of agriculture, Punjab now lags behind quite a few major states, including its neighboring state of Haryana, which was a really poor, impoverished portion of Greater Punjab when it was carved out as a separate state. So,
right.
It's a potentially explosive situation, and I would not be. I really hope it doesn't happen. But there is a possibility that it might just spiral out of control after the election, because you can't trust these upstart parties, and there are very serious concerns that the Khalistanis will make their way back into the highest echelons of power. So we should all be watching the situation very closely.
I'm going to stop you here because Pramodji is back, and Pramodji, let's give this a shot. Could you say something?
Yeah, very short, just half a minute. See, day is not far. Say in coming 15 to 20 years, Punjab is going to go Kashmir way. Please note my words. Please give me a privilege to attend your next program as and when it happens on Punjab. I'll speak in details as to how it is going to happen, what are the reasons, what are the causes, what is the present situation, which is a way. See, my only concern is who will.
Pramodji, you muted yourself again. Okay, Pramodji, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can. Yes, we can hear you.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
You can hear me.
Yes. Pramodji, Pramodji, you keep muting yourself, so we can't. I can't
In fact, my phone is not working. I'm sorry.
That's okay,
Next
Pramodji. Go
program,
ahead.
please. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Yes, Pramod, go ahead.
Can I come in? I mean, since
I think Professor Sengupta wants to say something.
Yes, Professor, please go ahead.
you see, primarily, we unfortunately kept on talking about these political developments. The fact is that Punjab polity, Punjab society, government seems to have lost its development impulse. Remember when we were growing up, Punjab was not just a dynamic agricultural state in the 70s, it was also a dynamic industrial state. Unfortunately, militancy, but the militancy ended. You had certain populist policies, and these unfortunately populist policies, in a sense, were initiated by Captain Amarinder when he basically made electricity free for farmers. So that had a deleterious effect on agriculture, environment. It's a long story. It had a deleterious effect on public finances of Punjab. They are a sad mess. It also had a very bad impact on Punjab industry. So, in a sense, you have a governments which seem to have lost any will to do economically where Punjab is concerned. Now, that society will either explode or it will collapse. Both are disastrous things to happen. In a sense, if growth isn't occurring and you are not seeing basically employment opportunities, you try to run away. And that is why you have these Punjabi youths trying to run away anywhere they can in all places, etc. Okay. Now, does the new government which has come in, does it want to tackle it? So far, it's just Game of Thrones coming to power. There is a security problem. Do they plan to tackle it? The question is how. So, see, as I said, it's politics as usual. Some people have come out top on this. I am not too sure Punjab and the nation have. Because unless we have some clear ideas as to what these people will do when it comes to the Punjab economy and security issues, I think we're in serious trouble. Having said that, remember, in the 80s, we were unprepared. Today, we are not unprepared. Today, we have a government which is willing to take extraordinary steps in the form of a central government to tackle a particular issue. And I think all state governments, in a sense, know it. We should not come to a position where the central government has to take these extraordinary steps. It is best when law and order and security issues are handled by the state governments, which are primarily mandated to tackle this particular problem.
Okay, so that makes it brings us to the close of this very interesting discussion. It's certainly not the last discussion that we're going to have in Punjab, going by what's unfolding there. I think we're going to be talking a lot more about it. On a side note, of course, Babul Supriyo has also moved from the BJP to the TMC. About 2 weeks ago, he announced that he was quitting politics. And there was some back and forth that went on. I think he even had meetings with the BJP senior leadership, and then it was all very emotional. And then yesterday, he announced that he is now a member of the TMC, and it was referred to as a master stroke by.
And Amarinder stole his show completely, unfortunately.
And Amarinder really came in and went postal on all the channels. And interestingly, as we speak, in Chhattisgarh, there's a bit of a rumble going on because, as you know, that Bhupesh Singh Baghel and Dio are at it, and Baghel is quite powerful in Chhattisgarh. So there are some conversations that he will actually probably not take the Amarinder Singh route and do an outright revolt against the party if he is removed. And that seems to be a far more critical position, although I do think that the captain is just biding his time. And Punjab is really a bonfire of the vanities because everybody there has a mammoth ego. From Randhawa, he's the most powerful minister, to Captain Amarinder Singh, who really believes and probably is more royal than the Gandhis. So I think there's going to be lots coming up from the state. And of course, we have the celebrity Sidhu with his international connections and brotherly embrace of Imran Khan and aspirations that come with that kind of engagement. So thank you so much everybody for watching. Please like, share, subscribe and hit the notifications button so that you know when we are online. We will of course be back more often in the week. In fact, Professor Sengupta, I would love to have you back because I really want to talk about the Quad in-person meeting that Prime Minister Modi is going to be attending this month. I think it's going to be crucial. I also at some point want to discuss with you what he said at the Security Council about Central Asia and security and things of that nature. I think the Prime Minister is back on his game as far as international affairs and relations are concerned. He's very actively involved, and it's a crazy time in international politics where you actually have France recalling its ambassadors from the US and Australia. It's unbelievable, you know. And I mean, I like the French, so if you ask me to pick from these, pick a side, you know, I lean French because I think they've always stood by us as well. And I just think that India's role, Prime Minister's role as being part of the largest democracy, I mean, the leader of the largest democracy in the world, is going to get increasingly significant as a new world order is aligning, and you have France and America and Australia fighting with each other. So there you go. So look forward to seeing you again this week, Professor. And for everyone else, thank you for joining us. Very interesting discussion. We'll be back in the week coming up. I'm also going to go ahead and do lives with you all whenever something big hits. So please press the notification button so you know when I'm live. It's not going to be at a fixed time, but whenever there's a big news break, I'll come on and we'll talk about it and discuss it live. So thank you, everybody, and see you next Sunday on the Sunday Club, but I'll see you before that during the week. Bye.